Thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation, your weekly dose of everything independently developed for the Nintendo Switch. I'm Jeff, and joining me, it's a new year, it's a new you, and it's a new Josh.
Heyo, what's up, Jeff?
Hey, Josh, it's actually not a new Josh. Maybe you're a new man. Are you a new man in 2019?
I am a better man than I was before. So there
you go.
That. I think.
One day at a time.
You just take one day at a time.
That's right. Well, thank you all for bearing with us a little bit over the last few weeks. We had an intermittent recording schedule due to, the holiday season and all of that. But we are back, jumping back on our schedule. There's some great new content on the YouTube channel we'll talk about in just a minute. But for the uninitiated, we are a weekly show talking about all of the independent games on the Switch and the eShop. So, you got your big games, you got your little games, you got your unknown games. Our goal is to share with you what we've been playing, what we think you should be playing, and then as always, we will spend the second half of the podcast talking about the games that are on sale this week and what new games you can expect coming out in the next week or so. A little bit of housekeeping before we jump into what we've been playing. Speaking of YouTube, if you search for Nindie Nation on YouTube, you will see a couple of pieces of content from Extra Life 2018, which happened just last week on December 28th and 29th. In partnership with another podcast group and Married to the Games. Strongly recommend checking them out if you are an adult and you are looking for other adult gamers. Their tagline is kids, wives, and 9 to 5.
And it's not adult like the rating adult. It's where...
right.
This is not triple X material here.
So. Right, that's true. It's not just, very, very solid point to make there, Josh. A very respectful, positive, more adult community. And I was playing for Extra Life 24 hours of Switch games on behalf of their community and using that time to make some content for Nindie Nation. We were able to raise over $650 for the Children's Miracle Network.
Nice.
And thank you. And Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And for about, 6 hours of that time, I think, Josh came over and we recorded some games. We played some games together.
Yeah.
So you'll see a Let's Play of Runbow that we did kind of one-off, about 20 minutes long. Josh is kind of teaching me how to play the game. He's whooping me big time on it. But that game was really fun.
Yeah, perfect party game, 8 players. We had a blast with that. Plus, you can also check out Mana Spark, which is a roguelike that I know, Jeff, you had your eye on for a while, so you can go there and check that out. We also had Escape Dudeland, which that was pretty funny if you catch out our stream for it, because half the time you don't know what's going on, and it's just like, why am I farting into this giant monster's face trying to run away from it? So, right. But it has a cool art style, so you should definitely go check that out. And then the Video Kid, this retro like Paperboy like game that has references up the wazoo as you go through it, which I think you enjoyed a lot. So
yeah, like 80s references to all kinds of movies and pop culture and stuff like that. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And those games we were playing throughout a hour and 45-minute podcast-ish, I guess you could say, that we did that was essentially a 2018 year in review. We pulled up a Wikipedia list of every independent game released for the Switch over the course of the year and kind of went month by month. Every few games we would take turns passing the controller, playing some of these games. And so you can see the video capture and the podcast, the discussion at the same time. That video is being released as a podcast as well, with a disclaimer at the front that, hey, we're chatting. Sometimes we get lost in what's going on the screen. Did you mention Flat Heroes?
No, I didn't mention Flat. That I surprised you guys with that, and that's one that we'll hit on later on. But yeah, we had a few people comment about how that was a really cool game that they never knew about but want to check out. So
That was very cool. So please go check out the content on YouTube and just search for Nindie Nation and you'll find our channel there. You'll see hopefully a Guacamelee 2 Let's Play going up. I might just re-record it. The content's there, but I was playing the game at 6 in the morning and pretty sleep deprived at that point. So it's not the most flattering content. So we'll see if that gets edited to hell and back or if I just end up re-recording the first 30 minutes of the game or
You're
so.
glazing over a little bit there.
Yeah,
Your
just a
daughter's
little
like,
bit.
why do you keep playing this? Come on, let's play
Yeah.
let's play Mario Party.
Yeah, we did play like 4 hours of Mario Party, but I got a good amount of time in chipping away at some Nindies. Before I get into those, though, Josh, why don't you tell me what you've been playing over the last week?
All right, well, I've been playing this game called Animus, and no, this isn't a reference to Assassin's Creed, which you may be thinking, but this appealed to me because I looked at some screenshots and videos, and it's a mobile port, but it has comparisons to Dark Souls. And if you watch some of the footage, the combat plays out much like Dark Souls with you locking on, and then you have your different weapons and dodging. It all looked the same as that. So that's why I wanted to check it out. I asked for a code and got it. So I'm about halfway through it, I believe, but it's a grind fest because it has those mobile game tendencies of you have to go back, face some of the same bosses, and level up. There's a bunch of different stats that you can level up, and currency you can earn to upgrade your equipment, get stronger, get different abilities, and each weapon class has different abilities. So very micromanaging like, and I'm enjoying it, but it's not that Dark Souls equivalent. Like I can tell that they didn't port over the controls probably as well as they could have. It's a little stiff in my opinion, but as far as like a grind fest, if you're into those types of things, it can be fun. Like there's a lot of weapons you can get, different types that are pretty cool to experiment around with. But I would just say buy Dark Souls Remastered if you have any interest in that, because that's the pinnacle of gaming right there. So, but yeah, that's all I have to say about Animus. Really, I wish that they would have leaned more into, because you just go into these arena-like environments, so it's not. There's really no exploration.
So it doesn't have like an adventure part to it.
No, you just select different places where you go on this like line thing that branch off a little bit. So you click on them, and then you go into like a pretty confined area where there's some enemies, and then there's always a boss at the end.
Which makes sense because it's a mobile game.
Right.
So I guess that does make sense.
It got good reviews as a mobile game, but it just came out for Switch recently, so therefore I'm not, like I said, I don't really recommend it, but it might get better if I get a little further. I am pretty far in it though, so I'm not holding out much hope, but there's that.
Did you mention who the developer is? 10 Birds Games is
there
the
you
developer.
Go. Yep.
Okay. What else have you been playing?
I also been playing Xenon Valkyrie Plus, and this came out, I believe, a couple years ago for other consoles, but just came to the Switch recently. And it's a charming little roguelike where you're these tiny little sprites, and that's probably my only gripe against the game, is that your characters are very small, sort of like a Risk of Rain, if you ever check that out. But what you do is you go in, it sort of works like SteamWorld Dig, where you go down in a level instead of to the side or up. So you're sort of working your way down, and that's how you get further into the game. And you get a bunch of different weapons, and like I said, it has a really good pixel art style, and the music's pretty fantastic. There's chiptunes like soundtrack, and yeah, it's pretty good. It's not among my favorite of roguelikes, but if you're scratching for something new, then it's good enough. I think you should check it out.
It was made by a French developer called Cowcat,
Right.
And I see that it originally released as a Vita exclusive first.
Correct.
And on the Vita, it received the PlayStation blog's second place best Vita game as voted by fans for 2017. So that's
pretty high praise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people who are playing indie games on the Switch, listening to a podcast about indie games, are probably a very similar group to those who were playing the Vita.
Yeah. Well, we love our Vitas, so you can't talk bad about the Vita, but Switch just does everything a little better. But
yes, for sure.
yeah, it's well, like I said, it's nothing too special. It's pretty run of the mill, but it does a lot of things right. So I can see how it might scratch that itch.
Very cool. I might have to check that out. It just came out on the 1st, so
Yeah.
that I'll take a look at how much that one costs. So on my end, as I mentioned, I was playing Guacamelee 2, and we'll talk about some of our top games of 2018 here in a little bit, but that game just shoved its way into my top 10. The game's incredible. It took me so off guard. I started playing it and I couldn't stop. It is hilarious, start to finish. It is better than the first Guacamelee. It's bigger. It has a better structure, I think. Like, feeling like
Flow.
feeling like I'm about halfway through. I can very clearly see what the next things are I need to do and be like, okay, well, I've got to get this thing, then this thing, and this will probably happen. You know, having an understanding of not just really good pacing, but setting the right expectation for the player. It's something that Drinkbox has always done very well. And I don't know why I doubted the game would be incredible, but everything about it is it's just more than I could have asked for. I mean, I can't recommend the game highly enough. It's phenomenal.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It's just a better overall version of Guacamelee, the original.
Do you think it's harder or easier than the first, or about the same?
I think it's about the same. I can understand why I think they throw a lot more at you in some certain sections.
Yeah, there's more going on the screen in a couple of areas, but I feel like, and maybe it's just because like I said, I'm probably halfway through it, but I feel like some of those insane platform rooms are maybe a little easier.
It's more accessible, yeah.
Oh, and I was talking about that while I was streaming it, and one of my friends actually chimed in and said, since the first Guacamelee came out, you've played a lot of hard 2D platformers. And I'm like, that's a good point. I played the first Guacamelee when it was like, unique to be a Metroidvania. And since then I've played so many Metroidvanias, not to mention Celeste and all these other tougher 2D platformers. I mean, maybe I just got good.
Get good. Yeah, that's the famous genre for the Switch, roguelikes and Metroidvanias.
Yeah, that's for sure. I wanted to mention that I've been playing a lot of Into the Breach. I didn't stream it during
sweet.
Extra Life because that game is like playing chess. Before you get to the level where you're in tournaments playing it, hitting the clock, but when you're at the point where you're just mesmerized and taking 20 minutes between a move. That's how I am when I play Into the Breach. So it would have been super boring to stream it. But I mentioned a while back I was thinking about going back and putting the game on easy because I was just taking so long to make decisions that I needed to take a little bit of the pain away so that I could progress faster. And I did that. And I tell you what, the game is still crazy hard. Like the punishment is still just as severe. Have you played it yet?
No, I haven't played it yet, but I'll probably start on easy now that you're saying that.
I would recommend it. I mean, the stakes are just as high. I feel like the AI is just a little less aggressive. That's all. Like all of the elements of the world that can destroy you, and the fact that really, it's like when you start, you got to go through like 4 or 5 levels, and if you make 3 mistakes, the whole game's over.
Wow!
But there's a ton of stuff to rebuild and upgrade and all of that, and I until Fire Emblem comes out, and we'll see how different Fire Emblem is now that it's going console again, but until Fire Emblem comes out, it's my strategy RPG on the Switch, easily.
It's really cool. That's one that we'll get into later, but I have to get in. I'll get it into at some point. I haven't played it yet, but a lot of people's game of the years. Yeah,
and I see why. And the music is amazing. Maybe I'll put that. Have I put Into the Breach in our music yet for this show?
Nope.
Maybe I'll
That'd
do
be a good one. Yeah.
Did you play the Mass Effect series?
Yeah, I love the Mass Effect series.
It's similar to Mass Effect. Like that's the vibe that I get. That like sci-fi, synth heavy, just a little bit more like militaristic, like drums and marching beats behind it. But Very
That's
cool
really cool.
groove. Yeah.
Huh.
It's the perfect music to have on when it's like midnight and you're sitting on the couch with your Switch and you're just taking your time thinking. It's like perfect music to have in the
That's
background.
sweet.
Yeah.
Man, now I really want to play it.
So let's talk about, before we get into our second half, we want to do a 2018 year in review. Now, keep in mind, we have a rundown of all of the games and a little discussion about each over the course of almost 2 hours on the YouTube channel. So we're going to go a little quicker through this. But we wanted to talk about a few different points. Let's see. We're going to hit on some of our favorite surprises of the year, some of our biggest misses or disappointments, some of the games that each of us missed, but we have on the backlog for 2019. And then finally, what we're really excited for going into 2019, stuff that we learned about in 2018. After that, we're going to go through again quickly our top 10 2018 Nindies each, just run down the list, and then we'll get into our second half. So to start things out, 2018 Nindies favorite surprises of the year, the game that we didn't expect to end up loving. I'm going to go with Owlboy. If you remember my love fest for that game when it came out, I couldn't get enough of it, and we'll see shortly. It became one of my favorite games of a console generation very, very quickly. And Skyforce Reloaded, I think it's very clear how much I love that game. I mean, it's my favorite shmup now, favorite of a genre, so, very, very surprised that both of those struck me as hard as they did. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. Skyforce Reloaded, that sort of took me by surprise because it has such a good natural flow to it that you feel like you're always making progress, but it's slow enough that it keeps you coming back. For me, it has to be West of Loathing. Like, I had no expectation for this game. It does not look that great or compelling, but then when you play it, it's just so much fun, and the comedy is just golden. Like, it's just so funny. I had me laughing out loud multiple times, and with a great story, adequate combat system or RPG system where it's turn based. But yeah, it caught me really by surprise. So that's one that I recommend for anyone to check out. And then how about we get to our biggest misses or disappointments? What's funny is I had a hard time coming up with this because there hasn't been that many big disappointments. Animus, but I had no expectation for that, so
Sure.
it's not really that much of a disappointment. But I will say there's one game that I had higher expectations for, and that's Aero. It's AAERO, and this is a rhythm game. It's from developer Mad Fellows, and the music is designed from Paul Norse and Dan Horbury, and they created the soundtrack for DJ Hero. And if you ever listen to that soundtrack, it's fantastic.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of the best in all gaming. But in this, the soundtrack is good, but it just doesn't reach that height. Like, it has an EDM influence, heavy bass, but I had a hard time gaining the gameplay system to it as you control the spaceship that's on this line, and then there's lines that come up and you use the analog stick to try to trace through areas, and then there's also enemies that use the other thumbstick to just it's sort of like Res Infinite in that sense.
Okay.
It sort of plays like that, but it's just not as compelling. And yeah, it's just sort of a disappointment.
Yeah, not what you hoped it would be.
Right.
And for me, and now I got to think about it, because I don't know if it's a 2018 release. If not, it was right at the end of 2017. But just a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I dove into Enter the Gungeon around Thanksgiving this year. And I've gone back a couple of times, and that game just doesn't grab me. And I feel like it's me, not the game, because I have tried it multiple times and everybody seems to love it. And I keep feeling like I might have a Messenger moment. Over the summer, I was hard on the Messenger and I was wrong. Like, I was dead wrong about that game. And I went back to it enough and I ended up falling in love. And I keep hoping that'll happen with Enter the Gungeon, because the formula's there. I mean, and I love the music and the animation is great and all that stuff. But for some reason, I don't feel like I get that much out of it when I play. I don't feel like I'm getting enough progression. I don't know. So that one just didn't stick with me this year.
I definitely agree. I did not feel the sense of progression that you should get. Like I felt like I was getting nowhere. And then you played a lot more than me, so you could speak more to it. But there's just so many. That's such a hot genre that you have to hit, or else it's just going to be hard to get into. As far as games you may have missed, I have a long list, but some of these
both
are just
do. Yeah.
But some of these I just have to hit on. I have to get to at some point. I don't know if some of them I ever will, but Into the Breach, that's the one that you hit on, that, and you sold me on it. I love tactical, so that's one that I want to get back to. Mark of the Ninja, I recently just bought that, and I've heard so many good things. I love stealth games. This is 2D. I really want to play that. Undertale. I played through the first part on PS4, and I don't own it for Switch, so I don't even know if it should be here, but it's a Switch title that came out in 2018, so it's one that I should get back to. The Banner Saga 3, I played through 1 and 2 and loved them. I have Banner Saga 3, I just never really
you sold me on Banner Saga as a series, and I played it and I liked it, but there was just too much stuff coming out at the time. It wasn't a lack of interest or anything, but you sold me on it, so I'm really surprised you haven't played the third yet.
Very in depth, and that's why I think I'm sort of shying away from it, because I mentioned, I tweeted out, I want to finish God of War. I need to get through some of these big releases in between playing all this Nindie stuff, so it's just not there. Gris, that just came out. This looks beautiful. I've heard so many good things about it, but I just haven't played it yet. Just Shapes and Beats, that's another one. Tim Geddes from Kinda Funny, he was talking mad love for this game in the Game of the Year, so that's sort of shot up there once he mentioned that. Minute, you can identify with this. This is a simple game. I hear it's a top-down where you have a minute to live, and then you do everything so procedural, so as you make tasks and complete them, they're already done the next time you play. So it sounds really cool, but nothing I haven't gotten to yet. And then finally, Chasm is another one, but from what I've heard, it's sort of more generic than like Dead Cells or something like that. That's just not as good. So I think that's why I've been holding off, but I want to give it a chance, you know?
Same here. What I keep hearing about Chasm is that it's just lacking the originality or like the thing that makes it stand out. I hear that it is truly a best in class for that Metroidvania genre. But that it just doesn't do anything really original, whether that's like a story or an art style or something.
And I hear that the procedural generation was a bad thing as you go back through levels. That it just makes things not unique. So. Sure.
Well, my list is very, very similar to yours. Minute, Gris, Chasm are all on there. I have also a couple that you've played. Monster Boy. That is hitting a lot of Game of the Year lists, and I really, really want to get to that in 2019. It's $40. I'm gonna wait for a sale. I'll probably buy it at expensive. 20. And I feel bad running a Nindie podcast and saying $40 is too much, but I really think that, I mean,
but Guacamelee 2 is $20, and that's
right. Like, I don't know if it's
experience.
Did they just do the numbers and say we can sell X amount less and make it up because of the price or what? But I really feel like they would have sold a lot more if that game was $20. And
definitely.
And so I don't know there. I am also really, really interested in Sundered, the Metroidvania style game with that
really
like
cool,
really fluid, awesome art style from the guys that made it's
Joe Toon.
Joe Toon, that's what it is, not Dust. Yeah, that game looks amazing. It gives me a few too many Hollow Knight vibes right now, so I'm still working on Hollow Knight, so I want to finish that first. But I think the next time I'm in the mood for something like that, I'm gonna hit Sundered. And then Horizon Chase Turbo. I was so excited about
That's
that
a cool game.
It's on sale right now. It's only 10% off though. But that's your like Daytona, not Daytona USA, like a Outrun or one of those old arcade racers. Have you played through it yet?
Yeah, I played through some of it. It's really cool. It's it's the same thing, but it
Right.
brings that nostalgia factor back. It's a really neat game.
That's what I'm worried about with it. Like, I'm going to get it, think it's really cool and fun. I'm going to play it for 30 minutes and say, okay, there's nothing new to see. That's what I'm really worried
yeah.
about. And if that's what's going to happen, then I'll probably stay away. The last one, and one that I think I'll probably get to, well, I guess there's two, that I think I'll get to pretty quick is Iconoclasts. That's on sale this year or this week, but it was also free on PlayStation Plus last month, and I picked it up. So I do think that as soon as I am in the mood to play something on the PS4 again, and I've got some time and all that stuff, I think I'll probably give it a shot on the PS4. Finally, Donut County, and I think this is one I might play with my daughter. I don't know if you've ever watched the trailer.
Yeah,
the trailer that is on, I think it's the one that's on the eShop, is hilarious because it sets the game up. If you don't know, Donut County is kind of the opposite of Katamari Damacy. It's basically you're a hole in the ground and you swallow things in the ground, and as you swallow things, the hole gets bigger until you go from swallowing up like plants and like potted plants and chairs to buildings and cars, and it's very cute. It's like polygonal, simple art style, but very bright and vivid and inviting. But the trailer they wrote for it is as if it's like a horror movie, and it's hilarious. Like, just if you're listening, go watch the trailer for Donut County. I think it's the one that's on the eShop, but go look it up. And if it looks like it's a spooky or a horror game or something when you're firing it up, that's the right trailer. It's really funny trailer. But I think I might play this game with my daughter, so I think that's one I probably will get to. So, looking forward, what are you most excited for in 2019, Josh?
For me, we share a couple of these together. That Hades from who is it? Supergiant? Is that who I'm thinking of? That looks
makers
really
of Bastion,
cool.
Transistor, Pyre.
Those are already great games. So and from what I can tell, this takes all those fundamentals of what they made and just amps it up. they're going all out.
Turns it into a Bastion, Transistor roguelike.
Yeah,
I'm
with
sold.
multiplayer experience. Yeah, it looks great. This is a game I've been waiting for a while. Stanley Parable is making its way to Switch, which I can't believe. It seems like it's been out forever, which it has been.
It has. It's been like a decade.
But yeah, we can finally play it. And I've always been intrigued because it looks hilarious, like just what you can do or not do. And I really can't wait to play that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Stanley Parable, it was originally a Half-Life mod.
Yes.
And they basically took like an average mundane life of an office worker and then put kind of like a Portal narrator vibe over it where someone's narrating what you're doing. And like, I guess you can just play the game doing as simple things as changing out printer paper and doing desk work on your computer, or it can, descend into insanity or something like that.
Yeah, from what I can tell, the narrator tells you what to do, and you can follow after it, which I guess just makes for a normal day of your game.
Yeah.
But it's all about exploration and saying, go through. He went through the right door, and then you go through not supposed to go through there. He went through the right door, and then you like go off in this opposite way. And
it looks awesome.
The comedy looks amazing. So that's one I can't wait to play. And then Shakedown Hawaii from that is this top-down GTA like clone from the makers of what was it called? Someone's gonna yell at me on this podcast, but regardless, it looks really cool. It looks like it takes that simple top-down GTA formula and just amps it up like there's ridiculous stuff happening. It has this awesome retro like graphical style, like Hotline Miami or something like that. And so
Yeah, you're right. It looks like an old school GTA.
I'm trying to think of the game that they came out with before, because you'll know as soon as.
V Blank is the developer, and I don't know that I know. Oh, Retro City Rampage.
Yeah, Retro
Okay.
City Rampage.
Yeah,
There we go.
got it. Wow, good for them, because it took them a long time to put Retro City Rampage out. I think it was just a couple of guys that made it too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into our second half, briefly, let's talk about our top 10 Nindies of 2018. Now, tell me if you thought of this differently. The way I thought about this is, here are the 10 games I'm going to recommend to someone. If someone says I got a Switch, and unless they're like, look, I never want to play a Metroidvania or something like that, but fairly blank slate, if somebody gets a Switch, these are the games that I'm going to say, hey, here's a good mix of, well, there's a lot of Metroidvanias on them, but but here's a mix of games that I think each one is fantastic and worth your money.
I like that concept. Like, just stuff you recommend, not maybe your favorite, but
yeah,
hey.
It's like a mix of what I think is the best, what's my favorite, but yeah, what I recommend. I would say to anybody, play these games and you should have a good time. So we'll bounce back and forth between our top 10. So I'll start. My number 10 game is The Walking Vegetables. Top-down shooter, independently developed. We really liked it on the show. Still one on my list that I want to make a Let's Play for, but really, really fun roguelike top-down twin-stick shooter.
That's cool that you included that, because I remember getting you that, and you're like, what is this? And then yeah, you really loved it, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
For me, 10 is West of Loathing. As I stated in my biggest surprise, it was my biggest surprise of the year because I had no expectations and blew them out of the water. And I don't hear this game talked about enough, so
it really seems to have disappeared.
I really wanted to talk about it with someone else, so if someone will listen to the show is playing it, just PM me a message and
huh.
Yeah,
oh,
it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Number 9 for me is Luminous Remastered. I think it's the best, if not one of the couple best puzzlers on the platform. It's a music-based falling block puzzle game. Luminous is a game for everybody, I think, and I think everybody should have a good puzzle game on their Switch. If it wasn't Luminous, I might put Tumblestone on there, but Luminous is top 10 caliber in terms of quality and getting the music to stick in your head, and it's on sale a lot, including right now. I think it's only $15.
That's really good. For my number 9, I have Valiant Hearts, and I love this game so much that I bought it again. It's sort of like, it's a history lesson, but it's a heartfelt story that actually made me tear up at the end, taken during World War One, and it has a lot of historical relevance. Has simple environmental puzzles that you try to solve, and has a cute art style. Like, it talks about the horrors of war, but it's done in a lighthearted way that, I mean, anybody can play and learn something from. And it took me by surprise. It's been out for a while for other consoles, but it just came to the Switch recently, so definitely check it out.
And number 8 for me is 20XTX, or you might read it as 20XX. It is Mega Man X, but in a roguelike element, so it's kind of an infinitely replayable Mega Man game. And I would tell anybody that's like, oh, I loved the Super Nintendo, I just bought a Switch, you gotta get 20XTX. That game is very, very fun. I would have been playing the mess out of it had Dead Cells not come out, because Dead Cells kind of took that formula, and instead of leaning into Mega Man X, it kind of leaned into more of like a Castlevania or Metroid kind of style, and did it a little bit better, but there's a lot to love with 20XTX.
For my number 8, I have Hollow Knight.
Woo-hoo.
And yeah, I have not you put in more time than me, so that's probably why it's not higher, but from what I played, it's the type of game that just screams that I would become addicted to if I just put more time into it, just because from the combat mechanics and the Metroidvania style, the art style. It's full of style. It looks great, and yeah, I'll get back to it sometime. But like I said, there's just so much to play. But I love what I did play, so rightfully on the list.
Yes, number 7 for me is The Messenger. What a awesome breakout game from this studio. What's Sabotage? Sabotage? Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic game. Won an award this year for best breakout game.
It could win a war.
Yeah, probably. The Messenger is just a 8-bit, 16-bit Ninja Gaiden type game, and it really is just the pinnacle of 2D action. It's got a little bit of the re-exploration and Metroidvania stuff, but just the way the game feels in your hands and jumping around and using your abilities, and it's hard as hell. Awesome 2D game that, this is the game where anybody that says, I used to play a lot of Nintendo games and I got a Switch, I say, get The Messenger.
My number 7 is Hyper Light Drifter. And as I've alluded to on previous podcasts, I love this game just because it has that Zelda-like quality of adventure and exploration. Like, you don't know really what's going on. The characters are very memorable because they don't speak to you, but they speak in like pictures, and it's really it's just really unique. Like,
it's very haunting combat, whenever you see the pictures.
Very subtle. Very, it's just has a unique art style that I haven't quite seen before, and it really sticks out to me. And the combat's great, and I'm not through it yet, but from what I played, I loved, and one of these days I might be there. It's very obtuse, so yeah, there's it's pretty difficult to get through, but it keeps it's a game I keep coming back to in small increments and don't really miss a beat. So
yeah, and you can come back to that game fairly easily. That's one of the things I like about Hyper Light Drifter. Every time I jump back in,
and sometimes it's better if you do, because if you're stuck and you just okay, I didn't really think about that before.
You start back at the beginning every time. You're like, you know what, I'm going to go this way instead. And then you figure out the thing that you missed.
Right.
Number 10986 for me is Guacamelee 2, which I think is the next one you're going to talk about as well. I already talked about it, so Guacamelee 2. I would recommend that one to anybody.
Yep, and I reiterate what you say. It's just a lot of it's just fun. That's probably out of all the games on this list, it's just one of the most fun you can play.
That's a great point. It's fun, it's hilarious, it puts a smile on your face, and you feel awesome the whole time you're playing it.
Yeah,
like you feel like you're pulling off really cool stuff.
You feel empowered.
Yeah. Number 5, as Josh mentioned earlier, number 5 for me is Hollow Knight, and it might get higher up there. But Hollow Knight is very, very close to what I would consider a perfect video game. Honestly, I wish it was a little shorter. The game's massive, and they keep adding stuff to it. But Hollow Knight's number 5 for me, and I would tell anybody that is looking for a Metroid-like game, although it's a little more than that, but that's the one I would recommend. I think that's the best like Metroid similar style game.
Perfection at number 5. Wow.
Yeah,
Near perfect. That's amazing.
Yeah.
My number 5 is Dead Cells. And this is one, I don't think it gripped me as much as you, but man, if that progression system isn't to die for.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, it's perfectly how you do a roguelike. You always feel a sense of accomplishment as you go through. And everything just feels great, from the exploration, the combat. It should have won action. Well, it did win action.
It did win action game of the year at the Game Awards. Yeah.
Hey, they got it right. Yeah.
The way that game feels to play is spectacular. Doing the dodge rolls and all that stuff feels great.
Yeah. The only reason why it isn't higher is because I felt it got a little samey.
Sure.
Just with the enemies and environment. Like, you felt like you're doing the same things a lot, but that's not a bad thing because it's all done so well. But
And it is a game where there's a point that you can choose to make the game different. You know, you can play it as an archer or as a stealth, or, you know, you can
Yeah.
choose to play the game different ways. And I found that I loved it a lot more when I would change up my style, but that's not for everybody. So I could
Right.
see if, you know, you lose interest after 10 hours or whatever. Number 4 for me is Skyforce Reloaded because it's fun, it's simple to understand, it's easy to get into, it's very addictive, and it is hard to put down and hard to master. It is everything that a great arcade game and an arcade shooter should be.
Yeah, I agree. My number 4, I'm going back to the Messenger, and phew, yeah, you're right. That when you get to that point where it opens up the 16-bit art style, it's just like a head just blown.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, the narrative and everything, it's just like, whoa!
It's just like, how can this be possible?
Yeah.
And I believe it was Jared Petty said this in the podcast, in their Game of the Year discussion, but he said it wasn't a game. It's not like a game aiming to go back to the classics, but it feels like a new game, but it looks like that. If
Yeah.
that makes sense, like it plays like a new game,
Yes.
and it has all those qualities, that great qualities of that, but also you harkens back to some of our love for that nostalgia. So yeah.
It's definitely the first game since Shovel Knight to accurately pull on nostalgia to do something new.
Yeah, that's it. That nailed it.
I think it does exactly what Shovel Knight set out to do in a very similar way. Pulled from a handful of different things. You know, it's not just a straight up Ninja Gaiden game, just like
No.
Shovel Knight isn't a straight up DuckTales game with the bounce mechanic or a Mega Man game.
Right.
My number 3, we're getting into our top 3s. I want to say, maybe you're the same way, Josh. My top 3, I really feel like depending on my day, these 3 could be in any order. And so the way I sorted out my last top 3 were games that I would go back to. That's how I picked when I couldn't decide. I was like, which ones have I gone back to, or would I go back to more
Perfect.
often? Thinking if I'm going to recommend it to someone, then they get more bang for their buck out of it. And so number 3 is Owlboy. Owlboy, I mentioned earlier, became one of my games of generation. It became one of my top 10 games of all time. It is a incredible story told with incredible production and music and just heartfelt story beats and a really fun, unique gameplay mechanic told in like, I don't know, it's a 2D platformer. I don't know. I don't really know that it's really much of a specific genre. It's just an incredible game, and that it's as simple as that. And I think just about anybody should try Owlboy.
Agreed. It didn't make my list, unfortunately, but it'd be like 12 or 11. Just because the music alone is
Yes.
utterly fantastic. My number 3 is Monster Boy. And I took the same general approach of what would I keep coming back to, recommend the most. Monster Boy it just brings a smile to your face while you play. You just can't really explain it. It's what video games are about to me, like how it plays, the art style. It speaks to me on all those levels. It's simple, but it's also, there's just so much you can explore and things you don't even think about. The gear that you're getting and the monster abilities that you can flip on the fly just to take on tasks and complete puzzles and defeat enemies. It's a true video game, you know?
Yeah.
It's great.
That's great. Number 2 for me is Dead Cells. That game came out in the middle of summer, and it just consumed me for like 2 months. And I've gone back a handful of times, and I find that it's easy
You
to
were
pick
in your
up.
little bunker in the corner there, just playing
Man,
that constantly.
I could not get enough Dead. I think I put like 70 hours into it already.
Don't be surprised.
But, you know, we already touched on it earlier, but this game really does set the new standard for a roguelike platformer. It gives you tons of different abilities, different ways to play the game as different classes and such. Like you said, it mastered progression in this type of game. And I think just about anybody that likes 2D games or likes games that challenge them, and is okay with the notion that, you're going to constantly fail as you slowly get better. I mean, talk about bang for your buck. I mean, I feel like this game has near infinite replay value. And if you ever want to see some awesome, insane nerd level stuff, check out the Dead Cells subreddit and see the people talking about like frames of animation and all this crazy stuff about tricks for loadouts and stuff. It's great.
That's cool.
I can't get enough Dead Cells, and I've gone back to it multiple times.
Number 2, Celeste. Here we are. I think this is one of the most perfect games of the year, as evidenced by winning Indie Game of the Year at the Game Awards. This is platforming perfection, as described. I just think it is the best platformer. I think Mario is the innovator. It's one of the best, but I think this tops it. And it's one of those games that you can just keep coming back. There's always a challenge that you can do, or you'll die multiple times, but it's always just so quick and easy to get back into. The game, it's brutally hard, but you always feel like you have a chance of pulling it off.
But the entire game has a narrative built around overcoming the challenge.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it tells an incredible story, and it really almost makes the player feel like if you don't keep trying, you're giving up on your protagonist. You're giving up on Madeline. And
you are. It's so heavy-handed, but it's true. It's just, it's beautiful. It's also charming in certain ways.
And that music, that soundtrack,
yeah,
so good.
That was probably one of the gyps of the Game Awards.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So Celeste is my number 1. So I'm gonna keep talking about it for a second. I think Celeste is a 10 out of 10. It is a perfect game. I have gone back to the B sides. I have gone back to the C sides.
I'm not there yet.
There is so much content, and the fact that when you get to those insanely difficult levels, that you can go into the pause menu at any point of the game, and you can adjust the difficulty. You can change how fast the game moves by 10 percentage points at a time. You can change what happens if you die. Do you just bounce back up out of the pit, or do you die? Like, if you're stuck on that one room, and I've tried it a couple of times, and I found that if I just wanted to see what was next, and I didn't, I got frustrated and I didn't want to stop playing, I would turn on a quick cheat, I would skip that room, and then it's not fun if you leave the cheats on. So as soon as I got to the next room, I turned them back off and I kept playing. Yeah,
but you have that option.
Yes, so I could keep seeing what was happening. And just like you said, with it being the perfect package, I think every video gamer should play Celeste.
Yep, agreed. And finally, you probably are wondering what could be number 1 for me. Well, I didn't realize this game has been out for a while, but it honestly just came out in January for the Switch, and that's Darkest Dungeon. And
coming in with the technicality.
Yeah, I almost have to, because someone's going to call me out for that. But yes, it came out January 18th in 2018 for the Switch, and it does count because, let me tell you, ever since we started this podcast, sort of inspired this podcast, actually, this game, I just feel like, as far as games I can come back to for the rest of my life, this is the game.
That's awesome.
As dark and gritty as it is, it's what I love about gaming, and it's brutally hard, but it's so addictive, and once you complete one of those dungeons, you feel like you've toppled Mount Olympus or something. It's sensational. Yep. And this year was really awesome by that list of games.
It's a great, and you know, not to mention the fact that these are just indie games, not just as in like diminutive, but these are only indie games. There are still tons of non-indie games that were also phenomenal this year, and so being a gamer in 2018 was quite the blessing.
It was, man. Whew.
But if we look forward to 2019. We got some good games coming out. Now, I'm going to be completely candid. It doesn't look like any of them are coming out next week. But, Josh, why don't you...
It's the calm before the storm.
It is the calm before the storm. Remember, Celeste came out at the end of January last year. So we don't... who knows? Maybe we got that in store in just a couple more weeks.
Yeah,
but,
maybe this Y2K, a postmodern RPG, could take that place.
It looks good, man. It looks real good. I'm really excited for that game.
But these are your new releases for January 11th. Starting with January 4th, 99 Seconds from Enjoy Up Games, and it's only $1.97. And it's a sequel to 99 Bullets, which was a 2D multiplayer, avoid all the obstacles, similar to Flat Heroes, which we hit on earlier. So, might be worth it for $1.97. Mad Age in the Sky from Sim Fabric for $4.99, which is a top-down mix of steampunk Bomberman. So that sounds pretty cool. On January 10th, we have Bury Me, My Love from Plug-in Digital for $4.99. And this is an adventure game, and it looks pretty compelling, actually, because it's a narrative about a Syrian refugee seeking safety in Europe. And I've heard some things about this, which I'll probably look more into that later. Inside My Radio from Sivan Studio is $9.99, and it's a rhythm-based puzzle platformer. Ethan Meteor Hunter from Sivan Studio, or Seven, however you say that, $9.99.
I think it's Sivan, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is too, but I don't want them to come out in the show and say, hey, you pronounced our name wrong, which they probably wouldn't do. But.
I'd be like, hey, you're listening.
Yeah, thank you. Can we have your games? 2D physics-based puzzle platformer about a mouse with time control and telekinesis. And it's known for, I guess, instant respawn with a hard difficulty.
I got lots of Celeste vibes from it. I mean, it's probably not a perfect game, but it looks like it's trying to do a lot of stuff that Celeste did.
Yeah. Next, we have Cave Blazers from Yogscast Games for $11.99, and this looks like a cave story, 2D platformer action with RPG mechanics, and imagine that, roguelike elements.
Yay!
Next, we have Combat Core from Madman Z Games. $19.99. 3D arena fighter in a futuristic cyberpunk world. Knock 'em Down Bowling from D3 publisher, $14.99. And Jeff, do you have anything to say about this?
So in the show notes I wrote, do I need to explain this? Nah, it's multiplayer bowling on your Switch. It doesn't look like there is any motion controls either. It's just like point the ball and yeah. Wow. I mean, it looked like it had a bunch of different modes, like some fun creative modes for bowling and stuff, but I mean, like it's bowling.
This one looks, the game's called Everything from David Orile for $11.99, and it's basically an interactive simulator where you can be anything, and you start off as like a microorganism, you work your way up to a planet in the universe, and yeah, it's narrated by the late British philosopher Alan Watts. So
what is that? I was reading that. So does that mean like they?
Yeah, I think he does some pretty great documentaries, from what I can tell.
But how did he narrate something if he's dead, and they just made the game?
Maybe it's sounds like him. I don't know.
I mean,
maybe it's before he died. They have the game finished.
Oh, maybe he just recently passed. Oh, I'm gonna feel like a jerk if that's the case.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Okay. Jerk. Yeah, this game. When you read about it and you read the way the developer talks about it, it's like very kind of full of itself. But who knows? Yeah. We'll see. Haven't really had many games come out and say you can do anything and be anything and actually pan out to be very, noteworthy. But I think this one's got some eyes on it. So we'll check back in a week or so and see if it's any good.
Right. We have Light Seekers from PlayFusion. It's free, and it's a trading card game. So you got to have one of those on your Switch. Hopiko from Merge Games is $6.99. It's a speedrun platformer about saving video games with 100 plus levels. And that's a lot of levels. Block Quest Maker from Wonderland Kazakire for $14.99. And its description reads, create and play instant death RPG. Which it looks like SimCity mixed with Minecraft. They had a baby. And it's hard to tell what that really is.
Yeah, it's very odd looking.
We have Mecha Wars Desert Ashes Arcade Distillery for $7.99, and turn-based strategy, and it touts an easy style and plus, but it's difficult to learn. So
it says that it's supposed to be like simple and fairly easy and approachable and things like that.
Double Cross from Graffiti Games for $19.99, and since it's created by the makers of Rumbo 13am Games, I'll probably look more into this. It has anime art style action platformer with all kinds of gadgets and parallel world mechanics similar to Guacamelee.
Yeah, it looks really cool. This one looks like it could be the pick of next week for sure.
Sweet. Snowboarding the Next Phase from Red Bull Media House for $9.99. This looks like a fantastic looking snowboarding game, and it's our highest recommendation for the week.
You Red Bull Media House, you are formally on Nindie Nation notice for putting out an N64 game. It looks like an N64 game. Stop it.
Dreadful.
This game does not give me wings.
Sorry.
But the next one that you're about to talk about, I was about to mock it, and it looks pretty sick. I'm interested.
Okay, Clock Simulator, cool to play, $3.99. Yeah, that doesn't sound immediately impressive, but it looks, from what it seems like, it looks, a rhythm puzzle game about being a clock, and that doesn't sound really endorsing, but check it out.
I gotta say, look at some of the trailers, because it's like not just being a clock, but like controlling time and how music and rhythm sync up with time. And
that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's really hard to explain, but I would love to get a code for this game and try it out.
Sweet. Maybe we should do that. But it's only $3.99 too. So.
Yeah.
Overdriven Reloaded Special Edition.
It sounds like it's like four versions of a game. Like, it's
I
like,
know.
Where's the name of the game?
Special Edition. 2-player vehicle scrolling shmup. Yep. So we gotta have a shmup in there. That's great. Grab Lab from Forever Entertainment for $4.99. And this is a crazy looking 2D puzzle game about making and solving all kinds of puzzles. This pub makes a lot of throwaway games.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
Forever Entertainment makes like No Thing and I can't think. A lot of the games that end up being like 97 cents and,
just something you quick fix type of games, yeah.
So there are a ton of games on sale.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a ton of games on sale this week. In fact, in our
Google
Doc, we go all the way from A to Y, and then at that point I kind of stopped. There's a handful of games that we own, and I wasn't able to see the score, but I will start this by saying almost every indie game on the eShop right now through January 6th or 7th is either like a 20 or 25 or 33% off.
Right.
And so what we did is we picked out a few of the either really noteworthy or newer games or some of the really high discounts that would be more than likely worth looking into right now. So, Josh, you want to run down those sales?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, first we have Into the Breach. Which we don't have a sale number for, but
I think it's 20% off. Yeah.
If it's it's worth picking up regardless. Moonlighter is 20% off at $20. This is a game I didn't really hit on too much, but because I have it for PS4 and I played a little bit of it there. But it's a pretty cool dungeon crawler where you're a shopkeeper and you upgrade your equipment, sell it. It has a neat little hook to it. Robonauts is 90% off for 86 cents.
This game has a demo, and I've played it, and it's decent, and I keep considering it, and I think I might finally bite the bullet and get it.
And I did not hit on this, but
What?
what they did with Bouncy Bob is complete crap.
Yeah.
And I shame you if you bought that game for a cent.
Nope, I did not buy it, and I really
Thank
don't
you.
like. I really don't like how
don't
many
like
other
that
publishers
practice.
are doing that right now. No, there's a lot. There's a lot of now. I've seen Robonauts on sale for $1 a handful of times. They're probably trying to do it right now too, but we're gonna have a problem on our hands if we see a lot of devs and pubs doing this.
And Nintendo has to do something about that. Like, for developers to do that, then just have their game at the top of the list. Like,
Yep.
that's just not right. So, bad on you, Bouncy Bob.
Yep.
But anyways, I digress. Shovel Knight Treasure Trove is on sale as well, and I think that's 20% off. And we can discuss that being one of the best indie games of all time, so you should get that.
Yep.
Night in the Woods, 40% off, $11.99. This is one that I should have put in my need to get back to because I should. Hello Neighbor is 50% off and it's still $19.99. And this is a garbage mess of a game, but I gotta say it's so compelling. Like, my kids were enthralled with it. Like, it's really freaky, but I don't know. It's just such a bad game. It's hard to recommend. Luminous Remastered is 20% off, also for $15.99. Like said Jeff, I played it on the Vita and loved it. You played it here and loved it. So Sonic Mania is 20% off, and it's $15.99 as well. And we love Sonic.
Sonic Mania is
retro
awesome.
retro
So good.
Sonic games are so great.
Yeah.
Uncanny Valley is 50% off for $4.99, and this looks like a neat little 2D horror like mystery thing. Retro graphics, looks pretty cool. Cluster Truck is 50% off for $7.49, and this was a fun, ridiculous platformer, first-person platformer that didn't control all that great, but it's just a fun novelty sort of thing to get into.
Yeah, that game's funny. It's just like Goat Simulator or something like that. You're running forward and jumping on crashing semi trucks. It's silly. I don't know, maybe 750 is too much for it, but like, I don't know, you're going to have some friends over, you're going to pass a controller around. It's fun for an hour of doing that. It's pretty amusing.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Then we have Death Road to Canada is 40% off for $8.99. And that's another one I want to get back to, actually. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good adventure, like choose your own adventure, almost like an Oregon Trail style game.
Yep. And Nine Parchments, this is on sale every week, so it's sort of a joke, but it's 70% off for $5.99. I think that's the lowest it's been.
Yeah.
So it might be worth getting there. Tiny Metals, 50% off for $12.49. We have Golf Story for 34%, $9.89. That's a great game that I think came out last year, so it couldn't make our list, but it's a fun game. Animal Super Squad.
The game looks like one of those like
Looks
Trials
ridiculous.
Fusion, like one of those motorcycle games, but you're animals. It looks really
like
funny.
fun.
And
Yeah.
It's $4.
Jeff Shapes and Beats. This might be the one that I buy this week for $14.99, 25%, because I've heard so many good things about it.
Mm-hmm. And there's a demo for it.
Yep, there you go. Guacamelee 25% for $11.24, and comes highly. We highly recommend it. Guacamelee is just about as good as Guacamelee 2, so you can't go wrong. Iconoclast is 25% off for $14.99. This is a great Metroidvania retro-like game that was a lot of fun to play. Same with Dust and Elysian Tale, 30% off for $10.49, only it looks more modern and it has a great combat system, 2D combat system, so it's really cool. Blossom Tales, 30% off for $10.49 as well, and this game is like your love letter to old classic Zelda games. Really fun. Flat Heroes is 35% for $6.49, and we've gone over this multiple times, but check out our streams because it's really simple but fun.
Yeah, that's the one I think I'm gonna get this week.
Yeah, that's a great price too. Miles and Kilos 50% off $199, and yeah, this game's great. it's like a love letter to those games of the past. So definitely get that for $1.99. Coffee Crisis 33% for $6.66.
It's the devil's discount.
The devil's game. Metal. No, it's a fun beat 'em up. I really like the music, and it had some good like metal Jesus rocks in there, which is funny.
Yeah.
Shadow of the Loot Box. This comes hot recommended to you. I really did not like the game at all.
I can't see how much it's discounted for. I bet it's probably $5 or less though.
Yeah.
And listen back to our last episodes. As long as you know what you're getting into, I think it's a good way to spend a few hours.
That's true. And finally, Escape Dudeland is 33% off for $6.66 as well. And this is masochistic, so the devil comes through on it. But it's a fun auto runner. Yeah.
If there are two games that should be $6.66, it's probably those two.
Those two. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think Doom's going to get that cheap yet, but
I'll buy it when it gets that cheap.
Oh, man. Well, we are setting ourselves up for an awesome 2019. Are you stoked, Josh?
Oh, yeah. The Nindies list just keeps growing. We have so much content every week, more than we thought we could ever handle.
And as soon as things start dying down a little bit, we're surely, in the last 6 years in a row, Nintendo's done a direct at the middle to end of January. So we're probably going to get another one this year.
Oh, yeah. I think January 10th, actually. So.
Is there a rumor?
Yeah, there's a rumor, so we'll probably be hitting on that next episode.
Oh, man, here we go. Honest. Did they announce anything, or is that in the rumor mill right now?
That's in the rumor mill. January 10th's a rough date.
Things. Oh, man, I love the Nintendo Direct rumor mill. Man, I get lost in that until 1 a.m. all the time. So
yep.
You'll have to send me the link to one of those threads. I'm sure it's on Reset Era somewhere, probably.
Yep.
All right, I'll go check that out. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week. Please share your thoughts on some of the games that you see, what you've been playing. You can reach us on Twitter at Nindie Nation. You can reach me on Twitter at Nindie Jeff. You can reach Josh at _the_Brant. And you can find us on YouTube. Just search for Nindie Nation. Same thing, facebook.com/Nindie Nation. If you want to see the community page and join and chat about some games and sales. And we frequently post things like hardware that goes up for sale or good accessories and things like that. So, put it on the list. We don't spam. We don't post a ton. We only post if we think it's valuable. So please join us there. And we are hosted through the Nintendo Village. Josh, for the 21st time, can you explain it to me? Because I still don't remember what they are.
Yeah, really cool site that we were hosted through that features a lot of other great shows that you should check out, like Mouse Bites, it's a Disney retro-like podcast that's really cool, and other great shows, the Hype Nation podcast and all that. So go there and check that out.
Fantastic. Thank you again for joining us this week. As we always do in the beginning of a new year, it's important to make New Year's resolutions. And, you might be trying to lose weight or quit smoking or, go to the gym more or whatever the case is. Stop swearing. But I really hope that you didn't choose to cut back on video games because we're just getting started. So thank you so much for your time this week, and we will see you next week for another great week of Nindie Nation.
Peace out,
homie.